Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our opening prayer. Joel Abelov will lead us in prayer.
Almighty God, you who are the source of our life, strength, and purpose, in your presence alone we find health, hope, and life. Guide us during this hour of fellowship and reflection to be grounded with a healing reminder of your love to all whose lives we touch this day. For it is in your glory we gather and offer our prayers. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. I'm Peter K. Goebel, the Director of the Rensselaer County Veterans Service Agency. We have gathered here this morning to honor a deceased Rensselaer County veteran for the month of May, and that veteran is Edward F. Doherty. We are honored to have with us this morning his family members, his son Ned Doherty, his daughter-in-law Cindy Doherty, his son Ken Doherty, daughter-in-law Kathy Doherty, daughter Deb West, brother Tom Doherty, sister-in-law Jerry Doherty, grandson Kevin Doherty, granddaughter-in-law Amy Doherty, friends Al and Vicky Galuli, nephew John Doherty, nephew Tom Doherty Jr., granddaughter Carrie Hoover, granddaughter Chris Hayden, niece Diane Doherty, and niece Nancy Doherty. Thank you all for being here. Also with us today to honor our Veteran of the Month are Congressman Paul Tonko, Congressman John Faso, former Congressman Michael McNulty, New York State Senator Kathleen Marchione, New York State Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin, Rensselaer County Executive Kathy Jimino, Rensselaer County Legislative Chairman Stan Brownell, Rensselaer County Legislative Vice Chairman Alex Shannon, Rensselaer County Legislative Deputy Minority Leader Ed Manny, Chairman of the Legislative Veterans Committee Tom Walsh, Rensselaer County District Attorney Joel Abelov, representing Watervliet Arsenal Mr. John Schneider, Troy City Councilperson Kim Ash McPherson, and Rensselaer County legislators Phil Danaher and Gary Pavlik. As we are all well aware, Memorial Day and Veterans Day are special days to remember all of our veterans. This program was created to help us honor our veterans all year round. To us here in Rensselaer County, every day is Veterans Day. The Rensselaer County Honor a Deceased Veteran program represents veterans organizations throughout the entire county. This includes members of the American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, Veterans of Lansingburg, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Marine Corps League, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Korean War Veterans, Tri-County Council of Vietnam-era Veterans, Heroes at Home, Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, and Vietnam Veterans of America. I will now ask Stan Brownell, Rensselaer County Legislative Chairman, to come forward to tell us about our honored veteran for the month of May, Edward F. Doherty.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the chambers of the Rensselaer County Legislature. As it was aforementioned, I am Stan Brownell, Chair of the Rensselaer County Legislature, and we welcome you here today to recognize the life and service of Edward F. Doherty Sr. Edward Doherty was born in Troy on October 25, 1922, to parents John and Helen Doherty. He was part of a family that also included brothers, John Jr., Daniel, Thomas, and sisters Helen and Jean. The family resided in Troy on Ingalls Avenue, and Ed attended the St. Patrick's School and was a 1941 graduate of LaSalle Institute. The year 1941 was a momentous year, with Ed graduating as World War II was in a second year in Europe. In December of that year, America was forced into conflict with a surprise attack. Ed was working at the automotive locomotive, American locomotive plant, as a flange press operator in Schenectady when he enlisted in the United States Navy on September 8, 1942. He joined the Navy while the war was still in closely fought contest. In 1942, Germany controlled mainland Europe, and Japan helped much of the Pacific. The Allies were largely on the defense and had yet to begin the long process of retaking territories overtaken by the enemy. Ed was assigned to the USS Dixie, a destroyer tender which supported the invasion of the Solomon Islands and Guadalcanal. A destroyer tender provides support to destroyers and other small ships. He served as a machinist mate 3rd class. Destroyers performed an important role in protecting cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers. Destroyer tenders played an important role in ensuring these destroyers could perform the important role of protecting and supporting the main fleet from the enemy. They would have been exposed to enemy planes, ships, shore batteries, and even kamikaze suicide planes. Along with the Dixie, Ed was also assigned to the USS McCord, a destroyer commissioned in 1942. The McCord was battle-tested, taking part in the invasion of Saipan and Tinian, anti-sub patrols and carrier escort and protection. Eventually, the McCord took part in the invasion of the Philippines and Iwo Jima. As with the Dixie, Ed and the crew of the McCord would have been exposed to enemy attacks, including kamikazes and subs. They would have been required to be a constant state of readiness and alert. The war against Japan ended in August, bringing to an end World War II. By September 1945, Ed earned an honorable discharge and was among the millions who, with the war won, journeyed home to begin their lives. Ed had gotten a head start on building his life before the war ended, and while on shore, Ed married Dorothy Zampier in San Pedro, California. Ed and Dorothy were parents of 2 sons, Ed Jr. and Kenneth, and a daughter, Deborah. Eventually, the family grew to include grandchildren Kevin, Lisa, Kim, Carrie, Christy, Cheryl, and Christopher, along with many nieces and nephews. Ed worked in a number of jobs to take care of his family, including owning Brownie's Tavern, worked with the American Locomotive and Borden's. He was employed by the City of Troy Water Department as a supervisor foreman. He was a communicant of St. Augustine's Church, member of the CSEA in Troy, the Sullivan Jones Post, VFW Hall in Postinghill. He was a member of the Rensselaer County Taverns Association and softball at the 112th Street in Lansingburg. He loved hunting and fishing and was a co-founder of the Stag Rod and Gun Club in Troy. Sadly, Edward Doherty passed away suddenly of natural causes in January 1976. He was only 53. He was buried at St. Peter's Cemetery in Troy. He was survived by his wife and children and a family that today includes grandchildren Kevin, Lisa, Kim, Carrie, Christy, Cheryl, and Christopher, and again, many nieces and nephews. Edward Doherty answered our nation's call when freedom was under siege in World War II. He volunteered for duty with the U.S. Navy and was placed in harm's way in the Pacific, participating in dangerous combat missions over the course of 3 years. His service, and the service of so many others during World War II, helped defeat tyranny, protect freedom and liberty throughout the world. And when he returned home, like so many other veterans do, Ed built a career and raised a respected family. He also contributed to his community, particularly veterans organizations. We also thank his family for their continued service to our country and for allowing us to honor Ed here today as the important ceremony. Thank you all to the veterans for your service. I know it's the month of Memorial Day. And thank you, Kevin, for being here. Master Sergeant Kevin Doherty. Proud day for you as well. Thank you to the family.
I will now ask Congressman Paul Tonko to come forward.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. Always an honor to pay such great tribute to giants who have walked amongst us, who have donned the uniform and served this nation so valiantly. And this morning, like we do at these celebrations and commemorations of lives well lived, we say thank you to people of greatness, like Ned Doherty, who through the Navy served this nation. It's an honor to join with my colleagues in government, and also want to acknowledge that Congressman McNulty had planted the seed for these ceremonies with officials from the Rensselaer County Legislature. And so I thank Kathy and the legislators for continuing in a wonderful opportunity to, again, applaud the efforts of these individuals who allow us to enjoy the freedoms we enjoy this very moment. The fact that his life was uprooted so early by his own decision to respond because of the attacks on this nation and all for which he stands. So, Mr. Sergeant Kevin, thank you for your service to this nation and following those footsteps. And Ned and Debbie and Ken, it's an honor, and all the family members, to recognize your dad posthumously here this morning. What he did in his efforts of valiant courage and courageous and determined efforts on the USS Dixie and McCord through that Pacific theater found him playing strategic roles, very, very important assignments that enabled us to be victorious in that Second World War. And oftentimes dubbed the greatest generation, he is part of that whole effort that really had their priorities correct, and where everything was about investing in faith, family, and this nation. And he honored that commitment, as we heard, as Chairman Stan highlighted his military service and his life efforts here in the local region. I think what we most applaud is the humility of those of that vintage that served this nation. They didn't boast about what they did. They didn't share a lot of the stories. They saw it as their ultimate responsibility. And so it's what we reflect upon here this morning. People from small towns who left that familiarity of home and the comforts of family to take on a very difficult and dangerous mission. But he believed, and he believed wholeheartedly. I was mentioning to the family that I was interested in his work involvement, knowing what a great place the operations at Alcoa in Schenectady was, and that he was there at a very young age, making a difference. But having toured a number of water systems, public water systems along the Northeast, from Wilmington, Delaware, up to this given district that I represent, I know the awesome responsibility that is associated with delivering that water supply to home place and workplace. And he, again, assumed responsibilities, understanding that that's what this nation is about. It responds to the needs of people. And so this morning, it is my honor to present a flag flown over the nation's capital at the request of my colleague and friend, Congressman Faso. He and I asked that this flag be flown in memory of, in honor of, Ed Doherty. May Ned rest in peace, and know that a community totally respects and loves his dedication and contribution to this great nation. Thank you very much for letting us honor him this morning.
I will now ask Congressman John Faso to come forward.
Good morning, everyone, and to echo the words of my colleague Paul Tonko, I think he said it very well. Mr. Doherty was part of that greatest generation. And it's so fitting that we're here in the month of May as the month of Memorial Day, as was mentioned. The purpose of these ceremonies is not just to honor the individual veteran, although indeed that is certainly a very significant portion of the purpose of this ceremony. But the overriding purpose, it seems to me, is to reinforce again in the minds of our community, and particularly the minds of our children and grandchildren, the important sacrifices that were made by so many who took up arms to defend this country, men and women who went forth, left their hearth and home, left their families to go defend the principles of our country, defend our freedom, and defend our democracy. And when you think that he left, he was not even 20 years old when he enlisted, and he went off on those destroyers, the really rather small ships across the vast Pacific, to be part of a mighty armada that this nation put together, filled with tens of thousands and indeed millions of people like Mr. Doherty who went forth to defend America. So on behalf of a grateful nation and the people of Rensselaer County, I just want to say God bless him, God bless his memory, and God bless his family, and may God bless America.
I will now ask our Rensselaer County Executive, Kathy Jimeno, to come forward.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see such a wonderful turnout from the family, but I don't think that's a surprise to anybody that knows the Doherty family. They come out in force, right? But it's nice to have the opportunity to honor your dad and grandfather and brother, et cetera, because, as has been said, he truly was a member of the greatest generation. As Congressman Faso said, when you think about somebody at 19 years of age stepping up to fight for their country, probably not having left the capital region or maybe even the city of Troy too much beforehand, and getting on a troop ship and heading to the Pacific, where the fighting was just absolutely intense. As Chairman Brownell said, subject to kamikaze pilots, subject to torpedoes, subject just to the diseases that were inherent in fighting in the South Pacific. It was just absolutely an amazing story to hear. And as has been said also, so many times our World War II vets would come home and say, oh, it wasn't any big deal. I was just doing what everybody else was doing, just, you know, what needed to get done. And I say that because my father says that sometimes. It was no big deal. And it's like, it was sort of a big deal, Dad. You were saving the entire world. You know, that's a pretty big deal. But they came back. They then took to building their communities, supporting veterans, building this beautiful family. And I think one of the greatest testaments to how proud he was to serve his country is that so many followed after him to serve their country. Ned, Kevin, Tom, all of you, you know, followed in those footsteps and says, yes, this is very important and very worthwhile, because I saw how important it was to our father and grandfather. That says a lot. And I think about how young he was when he passed, and you know how tough that must have been to lose him, and how significant his service was in terms of, you know, as a percentage, if you will, of the years that he lived, and to know that he placed so much priority on that, that he set aside his life, his family, his dreams and ambitions for himself to say, this I shall defend, is a pretty powerful statement, and makes us very, very grateful for his service and for the impact that he has had on our lives, that we can live our lives with these freedoms that we have. Is just a blessing to us. So on behalf of all the residents of Rensselaer County, I'd like to thank you for his service and present you with this proclamation. Thank you.
I will now ask Rensselaer County Legislative Veterans Chairman Tom Walsh Sr. to come forward.
Good morning. I really feel good looking over there and seeing that family there. You know, when you come here, a lot of times you don't have a large family. There are sometimes only 1 or 2 people there to honor that veteran. But this family came out in force here. Maybe it's because there's all these Dohertys out there. Yeah, it's like the Walshes. I have 29, but I think you guys got me beat. I came from the same neighborhood that Edward came from, and of course Tom over there, which I didn't say hello to. Hi, Tom. And Danny. I can't forget Danny, because Danny was in the National Guard with me, and he actually worked with me at the Arsenal too. And I always liked Dan. Dan, just a short story about Dan, and I know this is Ed's show here. Dan would walk into a bar, and everybody look at Dan, they want to come over and pick a fight with him. He had that Irish mug on him. I know Alex out there is happy today because we're honoring a Navy vet. We don't do too many of them here, but we do. I think the last time we had a Navy guy too. So it's good to have Navy people here. And I don't know, Tom, you were in the Navy or Army? Navy too, so I guess you outnumber the Army guys. I know your father, when I got commissioned in the Guard, he used to call me, every time he see me, he called me Lieutenant. And I always never forgot him for that. I only lived a block away from you. We'll remember Edward for a long time, because next year, around April, we will have his name on a plaque out there alongside of everybody else. And we'll always remember Edward and his services with the Navy. I have here a proclamation. Actually, before I leave that out there, we have roughly 150 names out there of veterans we honored, and we're very proud of them. We're proud of every one of them. I have here a proclamation honoring Edward, signed by our chairman, Stan Brownell. And you know what? I didn't ask the other legislators to come up. Would you please come up? It's happens when you get old, you know, the memory starts to go. All these guys were a big part of honoring our veterans. And we have a program now that they're going to be starting shortly, where we're going to actually honor a live veteran. So we're not going to wait till they die to honor them at the legislature.
Go ahead. Thanks.
I will now ask New York State Senator Kathy Marchione to come forward.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, with the Dohertys, with all of our military, our veterans. Thank you all for your service. Congressmen, all of you here, all the dignitaries, thank you for all you do and for honoring our veterans to Rensselaer County. You do such a wonderful job here to remember and recognize the outstanding contributions similar to Edward Doherty's contribution. You know, when I walked in this morning, I had a little added pleasure for me, because the Dohertys are far and wide, as Ken and Kathy are my neighbors. And I walked in Half Moon, and I walked in, and there they were. And so it's a pleasure to see my neighbors here and to recognize one of their loved ones. You know, service back in that time, as we've heard this morning, was a service that kept our world free, not just our country, but our world. And this morning, I have to present to your family the New York State Senate Liberty Award. And I think that stating that it's a Liberty Award is just exactly what Edward Doherty and that generation did for us. They gave us liberty. They continue to allow us to be a free nation in a free world. I'd like to read what it states. It states that the New York Senate Liberty Award is presented for exceptional valor and dedication on behalf of the people of the state of New York. And this award, of course, is presented to Edward F. Doherty, to his family. You know, we've listened to how much sacrifice he went through. When I have opportunity to talk about World War II veterans, I never, ever want to forget the people who remained back home. Because unlike us who perhaps don't sacrifice when our military goes to serve, they did. My mother-in-law tells me stories. She worked in an ammunition plant. It was very dangerous. She was a fireman because there was no men left. You know, you hear about gardens, freedom gardens, so that there was food grown here, so more could be sent to our military where they were fighting for us. So it was not only those people who went away and did the tough work, those people who stayed home. That was the greatest generation. And you see it when they came back home. You see it in each and every one of you. The hard jobs they didn't stop working and say, I work one job and that's all I'm going to do. They worked the necessary jobs to make sure their families were well cared for. And look at what happened, and look at what happens when that occurs. Look at all of you. Look at the love and devotion and connection you have, and all coming here this morning. That is amazing, and that's a life that's been lived well. Congratulations to all of you, to Edward on this award. It is my honor to represent the people of the 43rd Senate District. On behalf of them, I will be presenting the Liberty Award, a resolution that will forever be inscribed in the minutes of the New York State Senate, and presenting as well, I have a medal. Thank you.
I will now ask New York State Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin to come forward. No, John. No, John.
That's all right. It's the other McLaughlin, not McDonald. But John, on behalf of, I was going to mention John. John and I spoke yesterday. He sends his regards. John and I share these honors monthly, and we both usually here. Last month I couldn't make it. This month John couldn't make it, but John sends his regards and his respect. You know, it's an honor to be here with my colleagues in government and certainly with the Doherty family, and what a great family it is. By the time you get up here after everyone's spoken, there's not much left to say, but, you know, you look back at Edward's life and a short life, you know, at 53 to pass away. And being 53, I can tell you that's really, really young. You know, that's a short life, but he really packed a lot into that life, and service to his country. And then, like so many of those veterans, we see this month after month. They just came home and went right back to work and continued to serve their community in a great way. But I think probably his greatest legacy is the family and instilling in them the service and the honor of this country and paying tribute to this country and just continuing to serve. So that, I think, clearly is his greatest legacy that he's left with us. And he was certainly a tribute to this community. We're glad we got him back from California way back when to continue this great Doherty family that we have here. And I just want to, on behalf of John and I, we brought with us a certificate from all of us at the New York State Assembly to honor Edward and to thank him for his service and to thank you.
Tim Forbes from the Rensselaer County Honor Deceased Veteran Committee will present the committee plaque at this time. Will the committee members please stand? Please stand for the closing prayer.
Day is done, gone the sun, from the lake, the hills, and the sky. All is well. God of compassion, dignity, and strength, watch over this veteran and his family. Bless him and grant his family comfort and everlasting peace. Amen.
Amen. Retire the colors.
Retreat. Call. Right, face. Forward, march.
This concludes our Honor Vet ceremony for this month. Thank you for coming to honor our deceased veteran for the month of May, Edward F. Doherty. Please join us for our next Honor Veteran ceremony scheduled for Monday, June 12th. Before we go our separate ways, we will take a few family photos, then we will reassemble outside at our county flagpole to raise the flag in Edward's memory. Thank you again.